not just a hug. For ARMY, the moment felt like a wordless confession, a silent language that could only be understood by those who had followed Jungkook and Taehyung's journey from the beginning. In the midst of the camera spotlight, the roar of fan cheers, and the pressure of being a global idol, one simple embrace from Taehyung to Jungkook turned into an emotional event that made thousands of ARMY cry in unison. Social media paused for a moment, letting one scene speak louder than thousands of headlines. The moment happened without exaggeration scenario. No dramatic dialogue, no deliberately amplified background music. Precisely therein lies its strength. Taehyung stepped closer, looked at Jungkook with an expression that was hard to explain, then embraced him in such a meaningful way. Not a formal brief embrace in public, but rather a hug that lasted a little longer, as if to make sure Jungkook was really okay. For some, it may seem commonplace, but for the ARMY, it's an emotional language they've known for years. Jungkook, who has always been known as strong, disciplined, and rarely shows fatigue in public, seemed to be silent for a moment. His normally strapping shoulders look a little slack when he is in Taehyung's arms. His expression changed, no longer an idol who was always smiling professionally, but a human being who was receiving unconditional support. His eyes were empty for a moment, as if all the weight he had been storing had finally found a place to lean on. The ARMY's reaction was unstoppable. The video snippet of the moment spread quickly, accompanied by thousands of comments filled with virtual tears. Many wrote that they felt like they were looking at little Jungkook, a young trainee who used to come to Seoul with big dreams and fears that never really went away. Taehyung's embrace seems to take Jungkook back to those times, when he didn't have to shoulder the expectations of the world, when he still had Hyung who always stood closest. It's no secret that Jungkook has been under immense pressure in recent times. Issues, speculation, and excessive spotlight are often directed at him. Although he rarely responds directly, ARMY knows that Jungkook is the type who keeps things quiet. He chose to work harder, smile wider, and look more perfect, as if he wanted to prove that he was okay. But Taehyung's embrace that night seemed to dismantle the wall that he had been waking up tightly. Taehyung himself is known as a sensitive and intuitive figure. He is not the type to talk a lot at the crucial moment, but his actions are often the answer. The way he embraces Jungkook is not just a gesture of friendship on stage, but emotional protection. As if he wanted to say, "You are not alone," without having to say it. And precisely because it is not spoken, the message feels much deeper. Observers of the relationship between BTS members assess that the moment shows a dynamic that is rarely seen by the public. Despite their busy schedules, the demands of the industry, and their perfect idol image, they are still human beings who depend on each other. Taehyung and Jungkook, who have gone through adolescence together under tremendous pressure, have a bond built from common wounds, laughter, and struggles. The hug is not the result of a purely spontaneous moment, but rather a reflection of a long relationship that time has forged. What makes ARMY even more emotional is the timing of the hug. It comes at a time when many fans are worried about Jungkook's mental and emotional state. Without an official statement, without a long clarification, Taehyung instead gave the most honest answer through body language. He stood there, taking Jungkook in his arms, as if to tell the world that no matter what, Jungkook still had a safe place. Not a few soldiers who claimed to cry not because they were sad, but because they felt relieved. It's a relief to see Jungkook isn't completely alone. It's a relief to have someone close enough to realize when Jungkook needs a backrest. Relieved because in the midst of the rigors of the entertainment industry, there is still warmth that is not made up. The hug also rekindled a discussion about how important emotional support is among idols. In an industry that often demands flawless perfection, these human moments are a reminder that true power is not always demonstrated through words or achievements, but through presence. Taehyung isn't trying to be a hero. He just became Hyung, friends, and family. As the video continued to be replayed by millions of pairs of eyes, one thing became increasingly clear. The hug is not for the camera, not for publication, and not to create a sensation. It happened because it was needed, and maybe that's what makes it so touching. Unplanned emotional honesty always has the most impact. For ARMY, the moment will continue to be remembered not as an ordinary sweet scene, but as a symbol that behind the stage lights and cheers, Jungkook still has Taehyung. And Taehyung, in his own way, will always stand there when Jungkook needs a hug that is more than a formality. Because in the end, it wasn't just the hug that made the army cry, but rather the realization that true love, care, and friendship still live in the midst of a world that is often too harsh. And that night, Taehyung proved that one heartfelt hug can speak louder than 1,000 words. The hug didn't stop at that moment. After the embrace is released, the impact is even more widespread. Jungkook seemed to take a deeper breath, as if he had just passed through something heavy but was finally given room to breathe again. His smile appeared slowly, not the stage smile he usually showed, but a thin, fragile but honest smile. Many soldiers were aware of the change. They say there is a big difference between smiling to appear and smiling because you feel safe. And that night, Jungkook showed the second one. Taehyung didn't walk away either. He stayed close to Jungkook, leaning slightly as if ready to embrace again if needed. The small gesture went unnoticed by some, but not for ARMY who were used to reading their body language. The proximity is not accidental. It was a reflection of an old habit, from the days when Jungkook was still the youngest, who often silently shouldered fear and pressure alone. Many old fans reminisce on old stories that once came to light, about Jungkook who often blames himself when he feels less than perfect, about Taehyung secretly always watching, making sure Jungkook eats well, laughs sincerely, and doesn't harbor too many things alone. Hugs are like puzzle pieces that finally connect all those memories into one whole picture. International media also began to highlight the moment, although not all were able to capture its emotional meaning. Some just call it a warm interaction between members. But for the army, the embrace was much deeper. It is a form of communication born of complete trust, of a relationship that has passed through conflicts, misunderstandings, and pressures never really seen by the public. In the comments, many fans wrote their personal stories. Some said they cried because they felt represented by Jungkook, someone who looks strong on the outside but fragile on the inside. Others said Taehyung's embrace reminded them of the person they've always needed in life, someone who doesn't ask questions, doesn't judge, only comes and hugs when the world feels too heavy. What makes this moment even more touching is its simplicity. No long speeches, no emotional clarification. Taehyung didn't try to explain anything to the public. It is not necessary, because the hug itself is already a statement that Jungkook does not always have to be the strongest, that he may be tired, that he may rest. In an entertainment industry that is often cold and demanding, this kind of warmth feels rare.